Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with a design team project for Birch Press Design. I'm actually going to use the splash, and I'm going to use all of the layers, and I think you've seen me use this before, but I like it that much, so I have to use it again. I found some very fine glitter paper in my stash. Now, this was literally in my stash. I have lots of stash. I have a card base that I've trimmed the front, and I have a piece of vellum. So let's start using the dies. So I'm laying out the dies with the glitter and how I want this to be layered. Because remember, when you layer these dies, it's almost like a kaleidoscope that's going on with it. Now you can use just one of the dies. You don't have to use all 3 or 4 in some cases. But when you do use all of them, they will layer, of course, on top of each other. So you want to look at how your paper's going to lay out. And is that the right order that you're looking for? So once I have that done, these dies cut absolutely beautiful. You can see how easy those pieces are just coming out. Now it's time to glue your pieces together. So I'm going to use my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, but I'm also looking if I have something, you know, off the center and everything else, what it looks like. You know me, I've got to look at something in a different way, try everything. So I did finally decide we're going to put these together the way they're supposed to. And once that's all together, I'm going to set that aside with an acrylic block on top just to dry. Now, this is a different type of glitter paper. Again, I don't know where I got it. I don't know what it's called, but it's almost microfine. It looks like glass beads, if that makes sense. So because it has, while it is smooth, it could have a texture, but so to make sure that the glue adheres on this, I do want to put some pressure down onto it to make sure that I do have a good adhesion between my pieces. I don't want it to come apart. When it comes to the fine layer, the top one, I usually just put dots, glue dots. You don't have to cover everything, and then you should be just fine. So we're going to set that aside and let that sit with a couple of the acrylic blocks. It's funny that I keep pushing down on them. So this is my card base. It's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 top folding. It's a standard A2 size card base. And I've cut about 2 inches, 1 3/4 inches off the bottom of the front. I'm going to take one of the dies and I'm going to put that onto that top piece, and I want to cut that section out. So it's almost like we're doing an inlay technique. So I'm going to use my liquid adhesive, and the first layer that I'm going to put is a piece of vellum. Now, the vellum is cut a scant 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that's scant as well, which means there is a very fine border that goes around, as you can see, when it comes to the edges. I didn't want to make it even. I wanted to have that slight difference coming into it. I then cut another piece of cardstock from my stash just to go on the other side of the vellum. Now, what you could do, you could have made 2 of these circles. You could have put a piece of cardstock in between so that when they flip it up, they would see the same design on the other side. That's something that we could have done. But I just wanted to do the inlay on top of the vellum. The vellum kind of smooths everything out for me. That's why I do like using vellum sometimes over pieces. It gives it a softer effect. So I'm going to let that dry into that section again, putting an acrylic block over it. And we're going to work on the sentiment. Now, the sentiment I chose comes from the Best Friends clear stamp set. And the sentiment that I chose says, "Thanks for being you." So I'm using my clear ink to stamp that down, and I'm using the same cardstock that I used for the inside of the card. I'm using my white embossing powder, and I'm just going to trim that down using my Fiskars 9-inch trimmer. After I have that trim, I'm going to set that on one of the pieces of glitter paper that I used, or shimmer paper. This is like a cross in between shimmer and glimmer. Yes, okay. I'm just going to set that down, and I'm just going to use my large shears. These are my absolute favorite scissors. I must have them all times. I have many sets. It's an addiction. Yes, I admit it. I'm just going to set that for a border to go around the sentiment, and I'm going to glue that in place. I didn't want to have too much dimension on this because I do have the inlay of the splash, and that is raised just a little bit, and I want that definitely to be my focal point. Once the sentiment is in place, I then grabbed, I have a corner rounder, a handheld one. I don't have one of the corner chompers, and I'm just making sure that the bottom corners are rounded. And what I like is the vellum will come up, so you do have that texture as well. It's not going to flop around, but it just gives something else when it sits up as someone puts it on their table or desk or something like that. I hope you enjoyed this project. Remember, all the products that I used will be listed down below in the video description. I encourage you to go to the Birch Press Design blog to see all the wonderful other designs that are created with their fabulous layering dies and other products that they offer. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You don't want to miss all the wonderful other designs coming out. Thank you so much for joining me today, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.